We've been through a lot together. That fight with Fatalis was crazy, wasn't it? Sometimes I still can't believe we made it out of that one alive. I know, right? When I got caught with that supernova I pushed you out of the way of, I thought I was finished. I know, man. You saved my life. I had my doubts sometimes if you were really an A-list hunter, because it seems like you always showed up after I already killed the monster, but no. No, you definitely earned your spot here. Not like the Fiver, bro. Yeah, but that's why they call you the Sapphire Star. You always deal with the monster before we even get there. Sometimes I was afraid you'd put the rest of us out of work. You're gnarly cougar. But are you sure Fatalis didn't fry the humor part of your brain? Something must really be wrong if you're resorting to puns. My puns are awesome! They totally kick Loon Astra. Still, when we were staring that thing down in Shrade, I almost thought I was gonna puke, eh? Puke, eh? That almost sounds like Pukei Pukei. That gives me an idea for my next lore video. You know this has to be your weakest intro to a lore video so far, right? I'm well aware. Evolution is truly a fascinating and unpredictable thing. Sometimes mutations that seem crazy or even completely nonsensical, like those extra tusks on the Barbaroussa that can grow backwards and stab their own brains, or the appendix in human beings. And then sometimes you run into creatures whose existence almost cannot be rationalized by science, such as the ultimate anomaly of the ancient forest.
Well, you were right. There's our mark.
The Pukei Pukei. To say that the Pukei Pukei is a mixed bag would be the ultimate understatement. A bird wyvern, first and foremost, not quite as adept in the air as most flying wyverns, but still more than capable of flying whenever it needs to, with powerful leathery wings, but also with feathers to help air pass through and aid in flight, and of course to attract mates. As besides being vibrant to begin with, the feathers also gain a red glow whenever the Pukei is excited or enraged. If its feathers are brown and its eyes are partially closed, this indicates it's afraid, likely due to seeing a dangerous predator like an Anjanath. Interesting to note, the Pukei Pukei's feet are zygodactyl in nature. In other words, it has two sets of toes with two pointing forward and two pointing back. Zygodactyl feet are excellent for grabbing and gripping onto things like branches to perch on. So it was likely that the Pukei Pukei lived much higher up in the forest before bigger, more dangerous monsters, such as the Kushala Deora or Rathalos and Rathian, began appearing. Past that, it has the features of a frog and chameleon, much more like a chameleon in terms of initial, but with the large eyes of a frog, giving them far greater peripheral vision and night vision, as well as the long, sticky, froggy tongue, which it often uses as a defensive whip. And its tail, let's not talk about its tail right now. That comes later with how it functions. Usually found in the ancient forest, Pukei Pukei is an herbivore with a rather strange diet. Its choice of scatter nuts as its favorite food makes sense enough, but then we get weird, as it eats the spore puff plant, basically a mixture of a dandelion and a smoke bomb, as well as straight up rocks. But the next item on its menu takes its diet from unorthodox into the realm of insanity. Pukei Pukei can regularly be observed drinking out of poison cups, a type of plant that, perhaps to no one's surprise, is filled with a poisonous liquid capable of seriously poisoning a human being with toxins strong enough to dissolve insects and even small birds and mice. Similar to the pitcher plant, only like 100 times more deadly. Like Victory Bell in real life. It is perhaps this that makes the Pukei Pukei's personality so toxic, as it is known to be a terrible bully, picking on anything smaller than itself to bully them out of food or territory, but also quick to retreat if anything its size or larger comes around. This is why, despite being a flying creature, it stays in the lower, denser parts of the forest to avoid more fearsome predators like Rathalos. However, older and stronger members of the species have been also spotted in the Wildspire Waste. While a bit bolder and more standoffish than the younger ones of the forest, they still hang back to the more forest-like areas of the desert, away from the drier areas where Diablos tend to dwell. But in the rare instances one of these monsters chooses to actually fight, they have a number of ways to do so. Much like most other bird wyverns, they have the standard attack of jumping and kicking like an angry chicken, or turning and hitting you with their tails. And of course, their long sticky tongue is perfect to swing like a whip or to smack or trip up their opponents. However, it's also perfect for allowing them to grab the scatternuts they love to eat so much. This clever little bird frog thing can also hold these hard and durable tree nuts in its mouth to spit out, or hold in its tongue as it swings at a hunter. The bearings of the tree being powerful enough to knock a hunter out cold from a good hit to the head. And the only thing more toxic than its behavior is their abilities. Inside the beast's body lies a poison sac, likely developed to handle drinking from the poison cups, which it creates, stores, and builds up a poison of similar toxicity to the poison cups themselves, being able to cough up balls of poison capable of seriously weakening a hunter, sapping their strength and eating away at their skin. It also has a wholly unique organ known as a Pukei Pukei sac. Shocker. And this specialized organ also lets them generate poison, making some of their tongue attacks poisonous as well. Way to double down, I guess. But they can also expel a poisonous gas from their tail, serving to make a thick fog to disorient opponents and hide the Bird Wyvern from view, as well as to damage the lungs and poison their aggressors once again, allowing them to a sneak attack or just run away as the enemy struggles to breathe. Okay, so right now, Pukei Pukei is not seeming like the most stand-up monster, especially when compared to best boy of the ancient forest, Toby Kadachi. But maybe they can make up for it. Maybe they're at least good parents?
Ha! No.
Rather than care for its own young, it is believed that Pukei Pukei uses Merinos to care for its babies. When a Merinos isn't in its nest, Pukei Pukei will sneak into the nest and lay its own eggs, leaving its young in the care of the oblivious Merinos. Once the Pukei Pukei's eggs hatch, the young will leave the Merinos' nest and care for themselves, spending most of their time learning how to fly and feeding on plants. So, by now, the Pukei Pukei has probably left a pretty sour impression on you. But, nevertheless, they are irreplaceable, as they play one of the most important roles in the ecosystem. You see, many plants of the ancient forest have a low germination rate due to them being covered by a shell. Don't ask me how or why this does or doesn't work, that's the chiefest job. But Pukei Pukei increases the germination rate by feeding on these plants. Pukei Pukei mainly eats the plants for food or defensive purposes, does leave behind the seeds which make more vegetation for its environment. From the Pukei Pukei eating the plants, it allows for the forest's habitat to further grow and spread. However, Pukei Pukei are intelligent monsters and, despite being bullies, still have some sense of honor and know when there's a debt to be repaid. Shortly after the defeat of Xeno'jiiva, many strange incidents occurred. One of them being the appearance of a man named Geralt of Rivia. He is a witcher. Basically a hunter, but he hunts actual magic creatures. One such creature being a Leshen, an evil forest entity that, among other things, can control all forms of plant life to make trees and roots viciously attack people, control animals and make them do basically the same thing, and even create portals to other worlds, which is how they wound up on our world to begin with. Well, like I said, Leshens are evil creatures, stated to live only to kill. And they are very territorial, trapping anyone they perceive as an intruder in routes most creatures cannot break out of. A Pukei Pukei was one such unfortunate prisoner. But Geralt showed kindness to this poor creature and freed it by burning away the roots with his Igni fire magic. And during the climax of the fight with the Leshen, the very same Pukei Pukei returned and fought alongside him. Unfortunate for the Leshen, whose biggest weakness are fire and poison. And as one more little side note, Pukei Pukei that partnered with riders are very protective of their partners, shielding them from the acid rain they created during their kinship attacks. So, if you are fighting a Pukei Pukei, your best bet is to use a weapon with the thunder element. Fire and ice are also moderately effective, with dragon being at least okay as well. The only real wrong choice to make is to use a water weapon, as they completely resist the water element. As for statuses, they're all pretty solid across the board, with sleep and paralysis tied for most effective, but don't be afraid to give blast or stun a chance. Surprisingly, despite literally drinking from a poisonous plant, they aren't immune to being poisoned. In fact, if you spill a poison cup onto the ground and trick a Pukei into running through it, they will still be affected by the negative effects of the ailing substance. Nature officially makes no sense. So that is the Pukei Pukei. At first, it may not seem like the most pleasant creature of the forest, but it had an important role that few others could effectively fill. So while it is not the nicest monster to be around, it does far more good than bad, and its positive influence may truly outweigh its negative actions. However, there's one more species to talk about. Like so many other monsters, a previously unknown subspecies was discovered after migrating to the Coral Highlands because of Shara Ishbalda's shenanigans. As if earthquakes and landslides could be called shenanigans. The terror of the torrent, the Coral Pukei Pukei. A welcome change of pace from the original, Coral Pukei Pukei is beloved by a number of hunters for obvious reasons. First of all, it is far more peaceful than its original counterpart, remaining docile until it is attacked first. Second of all, it is no longer a poison monster, which is a pretty big plus, you know? Not a lot of people enjoy getting poisoned. And finally, while there's nothing wrong with the frosty green feathers and rainbow tail of the original, this one has a far more beautiful color to its plumage. A lovely red, orange, and salmon, which turn even deeper red when it enrages. It is just an incredible sight to behold. And rather than plants and poison cups, they usually feast on the coral eggs that are often seen floating in the air. So, you may be wondering, if it doesn't use poison, how does it defend itself? Well, our brilliant bird has swapped out poison for water. Inside its body lies two organs, the flood sac and Coral Pukei Pukei sac, which double down once again to allow it to store massive amounts of water in its body. With these two separate organs, they can shoot out highly pressurized jets of water, almost on the level of Mizutsune, from two different places, the mouth and the tail. The tail is plain and simple, acting as a fire hose. But it can also take to the skies to blast the ground below in 3 circles of direct non-stop fire, aiming further out each time until it has basically hosed the entire immediate area.
It is very difficult to dodge.
But the interesting thing is when it fires the beam from the mouth. As stated before, Pukei Pukei are clever cookies, so they figured out how to use their tongue in order to split the beam and send it in two different directions, making any form of frontal approach very dangerous. And of course, it soaks your armor to weigh you down and tire you out with water blight. Fortunately, while the flood and coral Pukei sacs let them store and shoot this water, they do not generate them. So while it can hold quite a large amount of water, it will eventually run out and have to flee to refuel itself, usually from the giant lily pad things in Area 3. On top of that, it is ironically weak to poison, and all other status ailments aren't too bad either. In addition, thunder is pretty good against it, with dragon and fire also being okay, and water, for obvious reasons, being ineffective. And the most damaging element against it is ice. So that was real smart of them, migrating to a place where the apex monster, like Yana, uses the ice element. Seriously, what's next? Monsters weak to fire moving to a volcano?
I don't get it.
But other than that, compared to the forest-dwelling Pukei Pukei, we don't know nearly as much about it. Essentially, we just have to assume they behave in a mostly similar, just violent once again. It is a lovely, fascinating monster trying to make the best of its surroundings and live in peace. And in a way, it perfectly embodies the water element it now possesses. When a storm approaches, it is rough and deadly. But as long as it isn't disturbed, it remains calm and serene.
So, there you have it, everyone. That was my lore on the Pukei Pukei and Coral Pukei Pukei. I hope you all really enjoyed it. I honestly had a lot of fun making this lore. I wasn't expecting to learn half the stuff I did about Pukei Pukei, like its parenting habits or how it actually helps the ecosystem, but I really actually had a good time learning that, the more you know. And I gotta admit, the first time I ever saw Pukei Pukei, I kinda was like...
Okay, keep that guy far away from me.
But then it really grew on me. It's a charming little creature. It may be a bully, but it's still very cool looking. I love frogs, I love chameleons, and I love birds, so roll it up into one, it's a pretty awesome monster. I'm not a fan of poison monsters, as you all know, but Pukei I'll let slide because for the most part, it's pretty easy to dodge its poison, and like I said, it's just a cool monster. But Coral Pukei, oh man, I absolutely love it. Look at this thing. It is just beautiful, is it not? And the fact that it's friendly and not always trying to kill you is a great plus. I mean, water is not my favorite element of the 5, but once again, Coral Pukei, he does water really well, so I'll let it slide. But for next time, I'm thinking I'll do the Paolumu, but I suppose Anjanath is also an option. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Would you like to see Paolumu more or Anjanath? It's pretty much up to you guys. But for now, thank you all so much for watching. If you like this, want to see more, go ahead and slash that subscribe button. If you like this video, give a quick cut to the like button. Leave a comment down below. Share it around with all your friends, assuming they don't fly away from you. And be sure to follow me on Twitter and Facebook. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss it when I upload a video. And then I'll see you in the next one. But until then, my people, stay sharp.